All right, welcome back to another live episode of the Relationship Series. My name is Gina Spataro, and this is my brother Sam Spataro, always talking about, the matters of the heart and mind, of course. How has your week been, Sam?
Really great, actually. I wrapped up a project today, so it was it's a little bit more intense because, as you know, my partner wrapped up his career in the construction business that I have about a week and a half ago. So just trying to figure out how to be extra strategic while having a little bit more work to do. But first project went really, really good. Super
Yeah,
impressed with the collaboration between me and my colleagues.
yeah.
And got home around 7:30.
Oh, wow.
Took a quick little pre-workout, worked out till 8:25. Shower, shaved, and here we are. I apologize that I was 2 minutes late. I thought I would actually set my alarm to be at 8:40, but no, things are great. Yeah, yeah, no, things are really good. So work is good. The Beachbody program is still going amazing for all of you guys and girls that are thinking about getting into shape. You can reach my coach, Lisa Temple Hansard, on Facebook. Reach out to her. She is amazing. Busy girl, career woman, has a child with special needs, and finds time every day, as I've been doing for the past 40 days, to build a better you. So, yeah, really super proud of myself and
That's awesome.
grateful for the opportunity with the program. How about you, G?
Good week. Some good news where my house is finally going to be getting fixed on Monday.
Okay, so well, obviously we talked Saturday. So
Yeah.
what's happened since then? Did you reach out to them or did they reach out to you?
So basically, they started down the street first because they were waiting on my materials because
Mm-hmm.
there's something different that they were ordering. So they're gonna start Monday, which is good news. So
Sweet.
hopefully within a couple of weeks it'll all be done.
So for those you who don't know, my sister bought a brand new home about 3 years ago.
It'll be 4 this summer.
Four. And it's been a holy terror. And so
Yeah.
through her due diligence and courage and charisma and all sorts of goodness, she's been able to hold the builder accountable and get some action with a home insurance program that's offered here in Canada, where now they're taking matters into their own hands and it's
Mm.
now outsourced, so the job will be getting done correctly. And God, if you guys need coaching on anything to do with that, give Gina a call. It'd be well worth it, that's for sure.
I couldn't have done it without a lot of support, that's for sure. So you and Dad for sure were great help. But yeah, it's a plus, right? It's like
Yeah.
summer will be here, my house will be fixed. So I'm super excited about that, just to enjoy it, you know. All right. So tonight's topic is, and there's a reason why I picked tonight's topic, and I'll tell you why, but how to pick the right husband or wife. Now, is there such a thing as picking the right husband or wife? I think as you mature, you can be more mindful of the things that maybe you've seen in relationships that you don't want in your relationship, or you can live and learn from your past relationships, maybe not to pick or create certain patterns in your life, because we are all notorious of creating those patterns in our life. Um, and we are creatures of habit sometimes. So basically, the reason why this topic is popping up is because a lot of my friends are done getting married. I'm at the age where, they're actually having children or have children. But there are a few still that are seeking that type of relationship. I am not. I'm not in the market for marriage for a variety of reasons. And I think a lot of people are opting not to get married these days, especially later on in their life, if they don't want to have children or, they have their own careers and are, self-sustainable, etc., especially if you are a woman nowadays. But there's a lot of reasons why people are not getting married, and there's a lot of reasons why people are still wanting to get married. Do you see, like, I mean, you and I are invested in the same conversations because we know a lot of the same people. And I feel as though the conversations are very parallel to, what they end up as, because they are married, and the conversations are very parallel into their concerns or their struggles or etc. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that many of the stories of married couples are so similar?
Well, I mean, I would say, I mean, we could talk about marriage. I would include all relationships on that spectrum
Yeah, I would say a
because,
lot.
no, I'm going to say most. I
Yeah.
mean, I was watching a video with Esther Perel and Lewis Hose.
Mhm.
Howes or Hose? How do you pronounce his name? Howes?
With Hayes.
Hayes. Shit. How is it Hayes? It's Howes.
Oh, is that it? I don't know.
Ho? Anyways. And they were just talking about, because he's just getting into a new relationship with a girl from another country who barely
Yeah.
speaks English. And I could kind of, you know, understand where he was going with a lot of the questions where, it was kind of, he was interviewing her to kind of gain some insight into his own situation. That's what it sounded like to me. But in a nutshell, I really think, after looking at all the relationships that I've seen in my life, all the relationships that I've seen on TV, um, no matter movies, whatever, the one I'm in, every relationship has its problems.
100%.
We were talking about, this before, and and it's so funny because, I mean, if you want to talk about marriages and the success rate, well, in today's world, I know in the Western world, it's 50, 70, 80, 1, 2, 3. So first marriages, 50% fail. Second marriages, 70% fail. The third marriages, 80% fail. So the whole question is, you know, is it you just keep finding the wrong person? Or is it just that you're unrealistic to think that the problems are going to be different
Hmm.
with somebody else? And so I think that is really, the landscape of relationship issues and breakup and hardships. And I, for one, will hold myself in this conversation where, you know, when you're in the thick of it, it seems like it's the end. What am I doing? Is this worth it? Is it? But at the end of the day, here's what people need to realize. They have those same thoughts and feelings at work.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have those same thoughts and feelings within their own family,
Hmm.
parents, siblings, cousins. Like, you cannot avoid, right?
No,
Problems.
you can't.
However, TV has done an injustice, because
Yeah.
back in the day, I remember growing up and you've seen Leave It to Beaver and all these, the wonder stories in the movies and all these great stories. And, it shapes our beliefs.
Hmm.
It really does. And I think one thing we also need to understand is that if we go back 40, 50 years, a lot of those relationships 2, 3 generations ago lasted a lot longer because the principles and the foundations were a lot different than what they are today.
I agree.
Society was different. Our interpretation of relationships are different, of children, the meaning of relationships, right? The meaning of being a man and a woman, masculine, feminine, respect. The whole landscape of relationship has changed. However, every relationship still has that same dynamic,
Hmm.
and that's called problems, right? Today, it is so easy to just pick up and leave and blame it on the fact that they were this and that, but to then get into the next thing and realize after, all the romance and the honeymoon phase wears off, that those same problems exist just in a different way.
Yeah.
So so I think really what it comes down to, to your question is, like whether you're going to get married, how to find the right man, how to find the right woman. I actually think that's the wrong way to approach it. I actually think the right way to approach it is, you know, how do I need to be the best me So that way, when I get into a relationship, I will know how to handle myself, handle the problems, and to communicate in the most effective way so I build a relationship, not tear it down.
Yeah.
We're literally looking inverted at it. We got to go in and then out. Out is that person, bringing them in, and then dealing with all the things that, come up when you're in that relationship.
Yeah.
We look at it from the completely the wrong perspective. You have to dive in yourself before finding that right person. So that way you know how to deal with the problems when you meet that person. So you don't think it's them and they're not perfect or they're not right for you or they're wrong for you or they're this and they're that. When really it just comes down to what's going on the inside with you and how to handle things. I mean, Tony Robbins says it like exactly right. The quality of your relationships is determined by the quality of your what? Do you know?
What is it?
Communication.
Mm.
Things break down because we don't fucking communicate. Or hold on a second. Let me rephrase that. I'm going to give you the silent treatment.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to give you the cold shoulder. Or like our Nana used to do, I'm going to give you the eye to
Yeah.
let you know that I'm pissed at you. Right? So we have very poor communication styles.
Right.
So at the end of the day is, our natures are different. I mean, relationships, marriage, whatever they are, they're always going to be challenging and difficult because we are different.
Yeah.
Right? And we're always going to want different things. And yeah, there's some things that you can look for in a person that will give you a better chance and all those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, where you go in times of challenge is going to determine how you move forward and the type of quality relationship you're going to have.
Right.
You know?
And I have to agree with you because so many times, I deal with women like specifically, and they're either exiting a relationship or entering a relationship, and I always go through like, so I have this chart, and basically what I do is I scan like the meridians of the body. And we'll write a list, right? And on the left-hand side, it'll either be a list of things that she wants in her partner, and we'll go through it. And then on the right side, I'll be like, okay, so how well do you match all of these things for yourself? And then I'll go through and be like, how good of a communicator are you? Are you ambitious? How well are you taking care of your body? How important is health in like for you, etc. And a lot of the times when you do that, specifically with women, they realize that what they're asking of their partner is something that they're not even able to deliver themselves. So I think that first and foremost has to be a priority where you can't have an expectation of someone else when the expectation for yourself is so extremely low. I think that's extremely unfair of asking that of your partner. Now, on the flip side, there's the basics, you go through it and you're like, yeah, of course, you want someone who doesn't mistreat you, of course. But beliefs and traditions are a huge one, especially nowadays, like depending on how you grew up and if you want to foster some of those beliefs and traditions. So someone's getting distracted over there.
Say hi. Say hi to your Zia.
Hi.
Hi, honey.
Now go ahead and get the heck out of here. I don't know where the charger is, honey, and it's not supposed to come in while I'm doing a video.
Well, you told me to come here.
But I was just saying, if you want to carry on those beliefs and traditions that you were brought up with, it's kind of important to find someone who believes the same things, because you will find a huge disconnect in parenting, disconnect in where you see yourselves in 10 years, where your growth lies, etc. But I think beliefs and traditions and religion can fall into this category too. It's a huge one. Your beliefs are your foundation, right? Can your beliefs change? Of course, 100%. But I think that that'll also determine the course of your relationship too, right? Because I know for a fact that if you hold strong to certain beliefs in the beginning of the relationship, and then in the middle of the relationship, you do a 180 or a complete 160 or 360, sorry, it could have some really big impacts in that relationship. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I totally agree. But, you know, at the end of the day, what solves that? What solves the problem when beliefs
Are you
change?
going to say communication?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna say communication, Gene. Like I think of all the time. I'm gonna say this authentically, okay? No
Yeah.
bullshit. If I look back at every single time I've had a problem with my relationship, where there's been a situation where there's been a conflict of beliefs,
Right.
or traditions, or values that I've had, that have come up, what determines the outcome is where I go
Yeah.
and how I communicate.
Right.
Am I going to get quiet? Am I going to get anxious and stressed? Am I going to get down and depressed about it? And, am I going to get angry? Am I going to get resentful? I
Mhm.
mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if you are conscious
Yeah.
and you have the belief that, if I can pierce my partner's heart right now, relationships are matters of the heart and mind, but letting them know that there's been something that had just come up that has conflicted with my core beliefs
Right.
and things that I value, and you go into a place of like the purest form of communication that sets the tone
Yeah.
for number one, building connection, number two, helping them understand
Yeah.
what you're feeling, and number three, I mean, the focus isn't just finding the solution, right? But I know for myself, when if I go back 20 years of being in my relationship, that anytime something's come up where there's been conflict with some beliefs or some things that I value, I'm going to say more often than less, it's gone south.
Yeah.
It didn't go in the direction I want because I wasn't in a good place to communicate.
Right.
I went to a place that was very dysfunctional, right? That wasn't resolving,
Mhm.
right? And it all comes down to the quality of the way I communicated what was important to me,
Mhm.
and that will continue to be the basis for that building block of building a strong relationship, or a poor one for that matter, right? But I totally agree with you. I mean, if you're trying to find that right guy or woman, or maybe you found them or you've been in it for a long time and you're still struggling with this, I would literally take the time and get a piece of paper and pen and just say, like, let's talk about those rare occasions where things go great.
Mhm.
Where were you mentally? Where were you spiritually? Where were you physically? Allow that to be the continuum for building, right? On those times where challenges come up in the relationship, because we talked about this. It doesn't matter what type of relationship you're in, whether it's a marriage or something like that you're in, or something completely different,
Right.
right? If you have things that matter to you and you want to find someone that shares the same beliefs, values, and traditions, well, that's going to get you in the right direction.
Mhm.
But what happens, and it's going to happen, what happens when there's conflict? What happens when, just like you spoke about, when things change?
Mhm.
Where do you go from there?
Mhm.
And that determines the quality of your relationship.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think too, I know we all know that men and women communicate differently. Um, and that being said, a lot of the times, in order to communicate properly, you either have a great role model to demonstrate how that actually takes place, or it's learned, right? So you have to relearn it effectively in a new manner. Like, I mean, I was so guilty of it. What's that analogy? Sweeping things under the rug and staying quiet, not expressing how I feel. And, I'm a little better at it now and not perfect at it by any means. But I mean, it's taken me this long to figure it out. because when you have some role models where they do the exact same thing, that becomes normal to you, right? So figuring that out as an adult is huge, and wanting to figure that out, right? Because you're right. A lot of the times the difficulty is in communicating. And the whole thing too is it's sometimes being embarrassed to communicate about the changes in your beliefs and traditions because you don't want to ruffle any feathers with someone that you have claimed to love, or you feel like you're stringing someone along because you committed to them, and then having to like express to them the differences that you feel after so many years, right? So I think you're right. Communication is such a huge, huge foundation, and learning it even in the middle of your relationship will help for sure.
And let's just one last thing.
Yeah,
I mean, you touched on the. I mean, the only way you would feel that if you didn't think the person would understand or respect that your feelings changed,
right.
right? So, I mean, if you change, we talked about beliefs. If you change your belief around that and believe at the core of you that they will understand and they will show you respect and they will be accommodating, then there's only one way to move forward from that, right?
Mhm.
So I would definitely, if you're talking about the beliefs and the value side of that, is maybe re-examine at the core of you what you believe about that if you're in a situation where some things have changed.
Right. I think another big one is ambition and goals. I mean, there's nothing more than, having someone beside you who is determined, or, sees a future that isn't just, so bleak sometimes. It's motivational, and I think that it motivates your partner to be better too. And I think that's the whole thing, right? Where it's like, if you're not growing, you're what?
You're
You're dying,
dying.
right? So I think that's a huge impact on your relationship, where you're always striving to be better in so many areas of your physical being, whether it's health, mental state, etc. But ambition and goals are huge. Like whenever you and I talk, like there's always something new that you're doing. Like there's always something that you're learning, or you're telling me, hey, did you hear about this? Or da, 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 da. And it's like, okay, like there's the drive, there's the will to like see another day through, right? There's a reason why you're getting up and putting your one foot in front of the other. And I think it's so important, not only for you, but it also initiates hopefully that drive in your partner too, right? And you learn off of one another, because whatever your ambitions and goals are may not be theirs, but they may see some benefit in yours as well. So, and I know that you agree because you're completely on that path as well. And I mean, could you ever think that you wouldn't have that part of you in your life?
I mean, it all depends. I mean, ever since I was a kid, I've always had a hunger to learn and grow,
Right.
right? Not, I mean, it was never about money or entrepreneurship or, how to be the best me, to pick up the hottest chicks. It was always, I've always had a drive in me for like understanding people, psychology, and why people
Mhm.
do things. And, I think back to college and I took a course, I can't remember the name of it, consumer behavior or something. Anyway, that's always been my ambition.
Mhm.
I mean, but it all comes down to it again, Gina, communication.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I'm lying. No, I mean,
Yeah.
no. So, I mean, we're talking about finding Mr. Right, Mrs. Right. And at some point, Gina, we got to do a course on this. And I think what it comes down to before you meet somebody, you got to get a sheet of paper and say, what's important to me?
Mm.
Ambitions and goals needs to be on there. What's important to me? What are my ambitions? What are my goals in life? And just like you said, don't find somebody where you're going to collide with. Find somebody you're going to glide with later on in life, because you're both pushing towards the same direction in life. In whatever it is. Maybe yours is health and fitness. Maybe theirs is spiritual growth and their faith. But
Mhm.
whatever it is, you're still going in that same direction, because your ambition goals may not be the exact same, right? But you have a hunger for growth,
Right.
right? You have a desire for variety, right? And
Yeah.
so if you're at a crossroad and you're in a relationship now where you realize your ambitions and goals are different, there's a couple things that you're going to feel. You're going to feel stagnant, just like you said, when you're not growing, you're dying inside. Um, Especially if you're very ambitious and goal oriented and you like to take where you are and find ways to improve. Well, I mean, there's hope for you too. I mean, you don't necessarily have to be in a relationship with somebody who shares that same value. If you love them and you're, morally and spiritually invested in them, continue to embark on that road and keep investing in yourself, even though you might have found this out, because a better you is a better we. They will by nature become better because you're always guilty by association. People talk about the sum of the five people you hang out with. Well, just by nature, even if there's someone that doesn't invest the time and energy in themselves that you're with, they will just become better because you got better,
Right.
you know?
And I think I'm just going to tell a little story because I think there's this like age barrier too, especially for women and for men. So I think the patience wears out sometimes too when the ambition and the goals are lost within one of the partners. So I remember having a client who was telling me how, and still young, like in their 20s, you know, having beer every night was cool, and, chilling out every night was cool. And, she got to a point where that wasn't cool for her anymore, but her partner still wanted to do that. So she outgrew that part of her life and has expressed that, right? So I think there's also maturity phases within the mind, body, and soul too, where it's like, okay, my partner's not outgrowing this. What do I do? Right. And before you say, well, I'll just stick it through and, maybe I can fix them or change their mind, where do people go on that spectrum too? Because it's like, can you fix somebody's habits? Can you expect them to fix their habits? Like you said, where it's like, you demonstrate your greatness and hopefully they want to be great too. But on that end, where it's like, what if they don't? And before you tie the knot, should you evaluate those things?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, nobody's got a noose around our neck.
Nope.
So we always have that choice to continue or to
Mhm.
change the path,
Right.
right? But I totally agree with you. I mean, whether it comes to wanting to have children,
Right.
getting married, whether you're a traveler,
Mhm.
whether you're like a workaholic, like you need to have these conversations because, it's not that you're ever not going to avoid conflict or problems altogether, but you can minimize them
Mhm.
by being very clear and specific to align yourself with someone where there will be less restraint
Right.
in the future.
Right.
It's easier to, if you had a business right now, and you hired someone who, is right at the core of you in line with your beliefs.
Mhm.
But then you hire another person and they start off in that footstep and all of a sudden there's an event that happens and another, and then there's a red flag that comes up, but you continue to keep going on and another red flag. But now you're emotionally, mentally, and spiritually invested. Now you're realizing, okay, you know what? I think I might need to pivot and change, but the decision becomes harder because you're emotionally involved. So I
Right.
definitely agree with you. If there's one tip I want to give people, and it's really a shame there's not more emphasis on this. I wish there was some more things in the school system, but maybe these are things that really need to be taught at home. And
Right.
that is teach yourself, teach your children, whatever, to, if you're going to start embarking on that dating, part of your life or looking for the one, whatever it might be, get that list, be very clear and specific. And when you're meeting someone, make sure they check the boxes off.
Yeah. And it's not going to be perfect because you're not perfect.
Hell no.
And that's the one thing about human beings. We're imperfect, right? But you do your best for sure. Another thing to evaluate too before choosing someone is having the talk about family, like, do you want to have a family?
Mm,
What would it look like? Where would you want to move? How would you want to raise them? What school system do you want to, bring them up in, etc. And then there's different types of families. There's blended families now, right? Like, and if you're more mature, in that mature age bracket, you tend to meet people who have children already. And, there's lots of things that come with that as well. So those are huge, conversations that you need to have with somebody. What will your family prioritize? Are you going to prioritize, being home for dinner most of the nights during the week? Is it feasible?
mm.
Are you going to, um, parent where you're taking on both responsibilities, doing a lot of the things that a man or a woman would do? Are you gonna divide the typical male and female roles? Like, those are some really hard conversations that people do not have. So, I mean, and people jump into it thinking that it's going to be all glorious and cute and fun. And when there's some stuff that you really need to figure out. And like I said, you can't plan for it. Like, I mean, there's so many factors. Like, when you have children, there's a percentage that sometimes it's not what you think it will be. Like you said, your friend had a child that had special needs, right? You can't plan for that. But what happens if you're chosen, and how are you going to get through that? Are you going to support one another? Are you going to, fold all those cards in and call it a day? How do you survive those highs and lows? And just like anything, you can't predict it, but you can have the conversations of what it might look like if it happens and what your roles will be with one another. So I think that's super important too. And, you know, how, like you said, the communication styles, right? Where it's important to communicate. Okay, if we get stuck in this situation, what are we going to promise ourselves? Because it's inevitable that these things will pop up no matter what it looks like, who's involved, etc. You need to have those conversations. You have an established family. And I mean, there's highs and lows all the time, but what advice would you give people who are wanting to have their own family?
So I think this, can go on many spectrums. It can go in, people who are in a relationship where there's previous children.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe you're in my situation where, you're going to get married and you're going to have your own children. I think, it's really important. People talk about a family tree,
Hmm.
right? Well, I think what is really important, if you can get a piece of paper and write family on it and circle it and pull like a brainstorm bubble. And I would say, what are the aspects of family that matter to me?
Right.
What does that look like? What are the things that I value about family? What are the things I want to create in this family? You know, how are we going to raise our children?
Right.
In this family, what are the values we want to teach them? I would literally put family in a if I could go back, you know I would go and put family in the center here, and I put all these things of what family means to me, and
Yeah.
then that becomes your guiding force as you build it,
Yeah.
and as the problems come up and all sorts of things. We have 3 children, and they're all different experiences, and each one of them, have different personalities,
Hmm.
and our approach to them, is completely different
Yeah.
between me and my wife. I look back to our daughter when she was a lot younger. She used to, fall ill quite often. And we used to take her down to a hospital in Toronto to get checked out because she was always getting sick. And our styles were completely different, on how to go about it. But if we, when we thought about, building a family together, in the beginning and before we had kids, and it's never too late, even if you do, I think it's important, like if challenges come up within the family with children, how are we going to deal with these problems in the most empowering, connecting, and loving way. So if there's one thing that I would like to tell all of you, if you're looking at building a family and you haven't started, or maybe you have, and if there's one thing that I've learned over the years and have cultivated, that when me and my wife are on the same team,
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to deal with the things that come up as a family.
Right.
So if there's one thing that I want to tell you at the core of it all is, be on the same team,
Right.
be on the same side of the fence, and work together with the problems and the things that come up in the most loving, kind, understanding, empathetic way. Because that's what family is to me.
Right.
It's just, you know, after 44 years of seeing a multitude of different family dynamics, and even, some things I'm not proud of that I've done, within my own family. And, the terminology family to me, has been thrown around very loosely. People think because you build a family, you're a part of family, because someone's in a family or whatever it is, that it gives you an excuse to be nothing but great.
Right.
Right. So, if you're building a family, hold yourself and the people within it to the highest standard and expectation of what happens within it.
Right.
Because that's what family is. Family is a place of love.
Mm-hmm.
It's a place of safety and certainty and connection. It's a place of understanding. And so if you want to build a strong family, that's going to be the principal foundation that will guide you through it.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you can feel when that is off completely.
Oh,
The disconnect is there, right? So,
100%.
and it happens. It
Yeah.
happens because it's a
Yeah.
learning curve within the situation too, right? But it's normal. But I think, for me to wrap all of this up, how to pick the right husband and wife, well, you'll never know the perfect, husband or wife, because I don't think there is, just because, like I said before, humans are imperfect. But yeah, I mean, you can find someone who has a lot of similar goals and ambitions and beliefs and traditions and etc., and someone who's wanting to grow with you in a certain state, I think is super important. And being specific, I mean, like you said, we live in a fairy tale world where we see the nice person, the kind person, the generous person, the whatever. Okay, but there's more than that. There's so much more substance than that to the person that you're choosing, right? You got to be attractive to that. You got to be attracted to them. Are they going to be able to provide in security and, you know, man and woman, especially nowadays. There's so many things that you need to be specific about. And especially at the stage of life you are in, I think you need to evaluate that as well. What about you, Sam? What are some final thoughts that you can give some people?
Well, I think just being a human, we are masters at complicating things, especially today. Esther Perel said it right. I mean, if you look at relationships 30 years ago today, it's a completely different system.
Yeah, 100%.
So how do you build, a relationship in the 21st century? How do you find that one? Well, sometimes you might need help to you do. I mean, what do I recommend before you dive in and make the most important decision of your life is hop on YouTube, find out, who's giving the best advice and counsel
Yeah.
when it comes to this type of stuff. You know, Immerse yourself in their literature, their information, book a coaching call with them. If you like, we also have a platform
Mhm.
where we can help you in any way on clarity.fm. Maybe in the description we'll put that. But in recap, my motto is always about becoming your own hero. And if you want to create, the ultimate relationship, I think the hero plan for that is getting a piece of paper and a pen and saying, what are things that I value the most when it comes to finding somebody and to building a family one day,
Mhm.
with whatever that looks like. And then as you navigate the dating, realm, you are not just going to go balls deep into the aesthetics, which is the external world. You're also going to be conscious to pay attention to signs of what's going on in the internal world with little subtle things that they say and they do when they're around their family and their friends, as you know, continue to keep connecting with them and see how they are with their work and all sorts of other things. And then from there, that's going to basically tell you the components that will be brought into the relationship and what the outcomes can be. You know, we talked about everything that happened in COVID a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
right? And for someone who's always been intuitive with people, I could see where we're going to be a year later. And
Mm-hmm.
you can too, when it comes to finding the one or building a relationship, if you decide to think clearly
Yeah.
with your heart and mind by being specific about the things that you want and not derailing from that and paying attention to the signs, right, of their personality,
Right.
right, that come along the way to know whether or not this is something you're going to continue to pursue or you're going to end quick.
Yeah. Because what do they say? Love is blind, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's blind if you're thinking with the wrong body part,
Right. 100%.
right? I
Yeah.
mean,
You got
which is what the majority of us do, you know, from the hop.
Yeah. Be smart about it, right? Just
Yeah.
because someone is showing you attention right away, there's a lot more investigation that goes into it. And there's a lot more involved in, finding out who the true person is, right?
Oh, absolutely. And let's face it, life isn't a dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, you know, we all think it might be easier if, when we're younger, our parents had those hard talks with us
Mm-hmm.
about, as you get older, these are the things you need to look for and navigate. This is how you need to navigate the world and so forth. But you know what? As generations continue, it's about evolving and getting better, right? It's about evolving and getting better, and teaching the next generation to be a better generation than what we were,
Yeah.
but you can't do that, right, when you're still doing the things that are harming you and your relationship and your life. So it takes courage, it takes being conscious, it takes being willing to grow and have a leap of faith and become your own hero in life.
So on that note, this is the relationship series, always talking about the matters of the heart and mind. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell on our channel. You'll see it on the front screen. Have an awesome evening, and we will see you all next time. Ciao for now.